It's setting up again.
Before we go live, good luck, guys.
Yeah, good luck.
Good luck, everyone.
All right.
Live.
And we should be live now. Right. Hello and welcome to our second ever and first online TEDx University of Essex event organized by the TEDx Society. I'm Petra, the president of the society, and for today I'm the host of the day, very nervous host of the day. I hope you are sitting comfortably with drinks, snacks, lunch or dinner at hand, depending on where you are watching from. We have around an hour and a half or 2 hours of idea worth spreading ahead of us. Before we begin with our speakers, let's see what TEDx is all about. We would like to apologize ahead of time if the stream begins lagging. Please bear with us, it should not persist.
Welcome to something special. Welcome to TEDx. This TEDx event is part of a global conversation that takes place every day in every corner of the world. In schools, in theaters, in workplaces, even in prisons, people gather to hear the best ideas bubbling up in their communities. More than 3,000 TEDx events are held every year in 170 countries. It's a remarkable thing. TEDx events are self-organized under a license from TED, a non-profit organization devoted to discovering and sharing powerful ideas in the form of TED Talks. It's not TED itself, but your local TEDx team of volunteers that has done all the work to put on today's event, including booking all of the speakers. It's this team's ideas, dedication, and time that have made this possible. We really hope today's program sparks an exciting conversation. This is a day for curiosity and for skepticism, for inspiration and for action. The more you enter into it, the more you will take out. And now, on with the show.
Well, I certainly hope that it helped clear things up a bit. Organizing an event for one academic year and then suddenly being forced to drop, postpone, or adapt was quite disappointing at first. But where many decided to postpone, we decided to push through, and today is the result. Before we let our speakers finally talk, let's look at our journey this year.
Over the past few months, the TEDx team have been working tirelessly to make our vision of the TEDx risk-taking talk come before our eyes. Although due to current circumstances, there may not be a stage nor lights, the important message will still be there to take away for our audience over Zoom.
Every step taken towards today has been teamwork. This has included team-wide deliberations on all our talks and speakers for today. This was to make sure it was an equal and unbiased selection.
Our topic name, risk-taking, stimulated an amazing team to come together. From our graphic designers to our fundraising volunteers, to our craftspeople, the writers, finance team, speaker selectors, to our social media advertisers, to our spectacular performers and sponsors, to our executives, and of course, to our amazing President Petra.
For today, we hope that you will enjoy everything that goes on. But please do feel free to contribute to our Just Giving page to help see the society continue and for future events. Enjoy.
Ooh. Okay. All right, now that you know everything, let's begin. Our first speaker of the day is Serena, who is also a dedicated and invaluable member of our society. She is incredibly positive, extroverted, and curious girl who loves inspiring people and discovering the world. Today, she will tell us something about the psychology behind risk-taking.
How likely are you to take risks in your everyday life? I don't want you to answer now. Just think about it, and I will come to that in a second. So today, I'm going to talk about the psychology behind risk-taking. And what I'm going to do is show you how to hack your brain in order to learn. Sorry, just a second. So today, I'm going to talk about the psychology behind risk-taking. I'm going to show you how to hack your brain in order to learn how to achieve risk-taking on a daily basis, how to become a risk-taker. But today, I'm also in charge of presenting the theme of this TEDx event, and so I will come to that as well. So here's again my pop quiz psychology question again. How likely are you to take risks in your everyday life? Not that much, right? Or at least not as much as you could or would like to. If we try to analyze why is that, we could get to a solution that blames our personality. We could say, I'm not that positive, I'm not that brave, I was basically not made for that, right? Well, nothing is farther from the truth, and I will show you why with facts. But first, how can we tell if somebody is a risk taker? Kanan proposed a description of risk takers as people that need stimulation and seek change, novelty, and adventure. They usually tend to show that they are independent thinkers and they're capable of solving their own problems. And what they do not enjoy is long-term planning, as they prefer to respond to the situation. After this long description of risk takers, what is risk-taking instead? It is an aspect of decision-making, and it can be differentiated. It is significantly affected by our moods, appraisals, and emotions. A catch-all phrase for this is affect, which is just differentiated in negative or positive, but subtly affect is a combination different for all of us. And here's where science or psychology always fails. The worst nightmare of every researcher. Variability. Indeed, all the studies conducted to show whether a negative affect increases or reduces risk-taking led to quite ambiguous results. And at this point, I think that I don't have any tip. But let's see. It was proposed that whether we take risk, what really matters is our perception of using risk-taking as a way to regulate affect, as variable as it is. And the real determining factors are just acute stress and especially the salience of reward. Indeed, it was shown that people in a negative affective state and under stress tend to take more risk because physiological stress responses such as the release of cortisol increase the salience of reward and impair self-control processes. That's because they are the same processes that will lead to then refrain yourself from taking risks. And I know that at this point you think that I trapped you into a biology psychology class, but trust me, you're halfway to become a risk taker. You're not there yet, we can say that, because, for example, when I was talking about reward, you were probably hoping me to say that if you slowly start adding risk to your life, you will get closer to this. But I'm afraid that is not the truth. What is true instead is that you will slowly enter into a virtuous circle. Taking risks indeed involves challenging yourself, experience uncertainty, and hope at the same time. That's stress. Cortisol is released, and then you wait to see for the outcome. And if it turns out well, you'll be happier than ever. But if it turns out bad, you'll be extremely happy as well. And that's because the simple fact of having challenged yourself opens your eyes on how far you can get. And so, your serotonin level will raise to the sky, and soon enough, you will experience a circle of positivity, according to what psychologists call mood congruity, which is an effect that happens in our brain and leads us to learn and retrieve better when the emotional value of the information, the affective value, matches the learner's mood. This is why when you're in love, everything is pink, and when you've been dumped, everything is gray. Just think about it. And then, what can be more rewarding than creating a better version of yourself? Overcoming your fears, for example. Even if, in that case, there is something I haven't told you yet. What I haven't told you is that when it comes to fears, it is almost impossible to forget them. And that's because of a tiny area deep down in our brain, the so-called amygdala, which stores memory of events, and especially the perception of emotions such as anger and fear, so that you're able to recognize them in similar events in the future and not doing it again. So you're right and not blaming too much yourself if you don't want to climb anymore the tree from which you fell when you were 7, or if you don't want to see dogs anymore after the day that one bite you. Because you cannot change it, right? Well, in this case, psychology can actually help us. Indeed, it was shown that our brain, every time that we learn something, changes, and also with a fascinating facility. If you get this, you can basically define yourself a risk taker. We all have this common feature in our brain, which is called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is the ability of our brain to change and to be shaped by our environment and the things we learn. And if you are a tremendous romantic like me, you can basically picture it like this. And the major driver for neuroplastic change is your behavior. No drugs, no tricks, no line training. So, be ready. If you want to achieve risk-taking on a daily basis, or at least in the occasions where you don't want to be regarded as a coward, what you need to do is as easy as a neuroplastic change in your behavior. And this is the tip that you were not expecting. And I know it because when it comes to decision making, the actual problem that we confront every day is being constrained by our own emotions in our comfort zone. But here, psychology has a solution again. The solution here is reappraisal, elaborating emotional information, changing its meaning, making it less threatening. And it makes sense if you think of all the people that are now famous for their adventures and exciting lifestyles, and at the beginning were just scared of everything. Take me, for example. Okay, I'm not actually famous for my adventures, but there was that one time when my own mind stopped me from becoming one. So, this summer, I was in Italy, exactly here, with my friends. And at some point, they came up with this amazing idea of going to the cliff, jumping from there, and swimming. Now, I need to say that I've never been that much of an agile person. And as a girl with various childhood traumas involving rocks, I wasn't exactly excited by the idea. But at the same time, I didn't want to crash the party. So we all went there. This was the cliff. We were exactly standing there. And it's not that high, right? Well, maybe I should say that that was from my friend's perspective, because my perspective was more or less like this. Actually, this is more accurate. So you can imagine how the story goes. My friends, me. At some point, I even sat there with the typical look of a surrender. But then I started thinking, what is stopping me from jumping? Okay, the probability of hitting guard somewhere, I can get it. The chance of some water to get in my brain and suffer from some neurological problem, I can understand that as well. But then I asked myself, why anybody on earth should not take this risk? Risks are everywhere. And guess what? The highest number of risks is involved in the things that now we recall as our best memories, in the things that made us feel change just once we've done them. So I reappraised the situation, making it a challenge and not a threat. At that point, also my amygdala got emotional. And we said, challenge accepted. And I jumped. And we should always jump, whether we are in a 4-meter high cliff, or whether we are in our rooms unsure to accept or not an offer, or when we are about to buy those no-return flight tickets. What this whole event is about, and what our speakers are about to do today, is not just presenting to you some new perspectives of risk-taking, but leading you to that cliff where I was standing some months ago and asking you, so, are you jumping? Thank you.
Thank you, Serena, as well. I don't know about you all in the audience, but the one thing that I really miss about having an online event and not a live one is the applause that our speakers would get from you if they were right in front of you. Though I'm sure they'll appreciate nice comments under the stream once we are all done here. Our second speaker of the day is Agnieszka, who is quite proud of doing extreme things, such as volunteering in Madagascar, applying for university in the United Kingdom one day before the deadline, and becoming a TEDx speaker as well. She will explore the risks we take daily and what it means to us and for us as a generation.
If there is no risk, there is no reward. Every generation has its own times, has its own rules. And even though our times differ from our grandparents' times, and their times differ from their grandparents' times, there is one thing we all have in common. We all take risks. We take risks as individuals, such as changing the career path at the age of 50, and we take risks as groups, societies, and generations. And it's thrilling to see how taking those risks has led us to where we are now. Today, I would like to focus on us, the generation of risk takers, the generation of people who do the exact opposite of what our parents told us not to do. Our parents warned us to never get in a car with strangers. And what do? We download an app that tells complete strangers that we want to get in a car with them, and we even pay them for it. Our parents warned us to never get tattoos because we would never be able to find decent jobs. And what do? We break stereotypes, we get tattoos, we get piercing, even pink hair, and we become doctors, lawyers, CEOs, entrepreneurs, public figures, you name it. Our parents told us that all of the people you meet online are swindlers or serial killers. And what do? We become best friends and romantic partners with people we meet online. Some might say we're insane, but I would say we are incredible. But maybe we're both. What we don't usually see at the first sight is the price that comes with it. We travel more, we learn more, we have more opportunities than anyone ever before us. And yet, research shows a significant increase in diagnosed depression among people aged 18 to 34. So why are we so sad in the times where we should really be the happiest? Well, the answer is simple. From the moment we are born, we learn how to take care of our bodies, how important it is to brush our teeth, dress up appropriately, eat fruits and veggies. What we don't learn at all throughout the childhood is how to take care of our minds. We spend more time choosing our outfits and getting the perfect eyebrows than we spend on self-reflection and taking care of our mental health. Every day, we are exposed to events that cause us stress, events which lead to failure, embarrassment, loss. And even though there are dozens of techniques that help to deal with and handle difficult emotions, we decide to ignore them. And no one ever teaches us any of those techniques. Because of that, we tend to develop very unhealthy habits. Imagine a situation. You're going to study in another country. You've nailed all of the exams needed to secure the place. how likely are you to say, oh, the exams actually turned out to be quite easy? Now, imagine a situation, you are already in a different country and someone makes fun of the question you've asked. How likely are you to blame yourself for being stupid or not enough? Those two situations show how poorly we treat ourselves. When we succeed, we tend to justify it with external circumstances, like the exam was quite easy. When we fail, we blame it on ourselves. What we should do is to take the opposite approach. When we succeed, be proud of it. Give yourself a high five. When we fail, try to look at it from a slightly different perspective. Don't blame yourself so hard. Tell yourself what you'd tell a good friend. It's okay, it's not your fault. By worrying too much about the things that don't even matter that much in the end, we are exposing ourselves to an increased possibility to develop anxiety and clinical depression. But how is it all related to risk-taking? Well, as I said, every day we're exposed to lots of extreme situations and stress and difficult situations. And there are a few basic human needs that need to be met in order for us to be physically healthy and mentally happy. And by taking risks, we are always depriving ourselves from one or more of those needs. And it's a natural process in which we function. But the real problem begins when we're facing the prolonged feeling of missing something. And this is what causes the anxiety and depression. So, is risk-taking worth all of those mental health consequences? Is it the curse of our era that we have all of those amazing opportunities and chances which lead us to all of those horrible consequences? Well, the final answer is yours. In my opinion, as soon as we learn how to recognize our feelings, how to meet our needs, and how to be a bit kinder to ourselves, the risk-taking opportunities are the blessings. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Agnieszka. For me, this definitely brought a very new perspective to our generation and the days that we live nowadays. Now, before our first performance begins, I would like to bring your attention to our Just Giving page. You can find the link in the stream description and our bio on Instagram. So if you do enjoy our event, donating any amount helps us create a better one next year. Our first performance of the day is by a spoken word artist known as Fresh Linen, who is also a leader of an artist collective called Return to Cinder. I really hope I pronounced it right because there are a couple of changes to the spelling. He has done numerous performances on mentorship, love, diversity, but for our event, he has prepared a really special piece about the person we never want around, but we put up with. George, the stage is yours.
Hello, everyone. This is my poem that I wrote for the risk-taking. So we all know that one person who is just a pest, and most of us have this regrettable ex. This poem is about them. See, you only show your face once we've gotten over you. You remember birthdays and holidays better than a room full of 1,000 grannies or Facebook notifications, and you always pick the wrong time to show up. And who said you could even come to the cookout? See, you are the ex we wish we could forget. Forget that we even held hands with, and every memory of you feels like being in a scary movie, and guess what? We're not the main character. You're the ex who has been introduced to the family multiple times, mainly because we just accept you. You see, my mother calls you the devil, and my father calls you evil, and my grandparents used to call you cancerous, even though they weren't into horoscopes. But my uncle knew you as AIDS. Because everyone knows your true name is Death. Yes, Death. That stalker that plans your every move. You never appear as a shadow like the movies or fairy tales, but instead, you are the little voice that says one more shot, or seatbelts are a little too uncomfortable, or take your daily dose of Tide Pods. You're actually very inconsiderate. See, you don't care about anyone else's schedule. You interrupt dinner plans and 5-year goals. Never known death to be a musician, but you know how to orchestrate the perfect wrong place, wrong time, but the wrong bullet left a hole in the right aorta type of situations. You are the cousin to karma and bad luck. And even they think you take it too far. And I'm not trying to be an instigator, but I hear you and Father Time have a little bit of a beef with each other. Besides the love triangle that you two have with Mother Nature, you both crave attention. You see, because there's no time to die and everyone's dying to have more time, but don't get me wrong, Death. It's not you, it's me. Actually, it's all of us. We're in fact infatuated with you. Don't you see? Because of you, you give us urgency to appreciate every breath we take. And because of you, I kiss my fiance and say, drive safe no matter how late for work I am, knowing you have a blind date set with her any day from this moment. See, because of you, we are still living our best life and tattooing no regrets on our chests. And because of you, we believe in footprint, in legacy, and in hope. And because of you, we take risk. The fear of you prevents some of us from doing what we desire and what we're meant to do. And you slap the sofa the same way a car salesman slaps the hood of a financial heartbreak. And you let comfort settle into our spines the same way a pimple photobombs picture day. Once we notice, it's a little too late. But for most of us, you are a catalyst to challenge, and you help make the best of our lives. See, despite you, we use calendars and say, see you later. And knowing that you've already dropped the pin and exact location you plan to visit us, we still save money so we can spend it like there's no tomorrow. Because of you, we have become a lightning strike's favorite dance move, unpredictable. But because of your persistence, we have drive and adrenaline and aspirations. And even though you pop up way more frequently than unwanted ads, we still build bottomless bucket lists. And don't get me wrong, I would like to see you one day, but I've got a whole life to live later. So take your time and take the scenic route, because who knows when it'll be the last time we all get to do something for the first time. Thank you.
Thank you, George, as well. Incredible. What do you think? Definitely let us know in the comment box. And while we are at the comment box, if you leave George a couple of words, he will make a poem specifically for this event using the words that you have told us. It'll be the last performance of the day, so stay tuned. The next speaker is Michael. We like to mention that he was able to send his application within a crazy deadline because he only found out so late. But if he's not rushing to TEDx's, he is a confidence and happiness coach with a lot of experience with nonprofit work, passionate about making difference in the world. Today, he's going to tell us something about the comfort zone.
George Adair said, everything you've ever wanted is on the other side of fear. So what's stopping us? It's our caveman brain that still operates on survival mode. And to this day, it hasn't changed that much. There's a caveman rule, react immediately, think later. And that's where the subconscious mind protects us from danger and predators. Today, the real danger is not 5G or running out of toilet paper or super intelligent AI. It's the negative thought that runs through our mind that tells us that we're not good enough and prevents us from living a fulfilled life. So the caveman brain simply translates to comfort zone. And comfort zone is what we can do with ease. It's predictable. It could be browsing the internet, watching TV, playing your favorite sports. And when we come out of our comfort zone, we tend to walk towards our goal. Could be learning a new skill set, a new language, perhaps starting a new business. A few years ago, I visited an old neighbor of mine, and she was in a care home. She's a lovely lady, down to earth, just full of joy. And we were having a conversation, and halfway through it, she said to me that she wished she had lived life on her terms, that she was true to herself. And I thought, wow, can you imagine? looking back on the last 85 years and pondering on the actions and decisions that you have made, or perhaps you did not make. You see, when we step out of our comfort zone, we're walking into the world of fear, the fear of unknown, the fear of embarrassment. We have this negative thoughts in our head that tells us that we're not good enough, or even it tells us, whoa, 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 don't you dare. Go back to your comfort zone where I can protect you. And then it became clear to me that your comfort zone is actually your danger zone. And sometimes we struggle to get out of the comfort zone because we don't have that self-belief, that self-confidence, the commitment. We have these voices in our head that says, you're not ready. You can never do this. But when that happens, I encourage you to question yourself or even challenge yourself and say, according to who? Have I done this before? And what would happen if I don't take action? There are two different outcomes when you come out of your comfort zone, and they come from an event. And when you come from events, there are three things. That is, the outcome would be break you, unbreakable, and breakthrough. So we look at break you first. In 2013, I was volunteering at a homeless shelter and I met a gentleman called Dave. He told me he had everything going for him. He was married, had a steady job, had a mortgage. He was a happy person until his wife filed for divorce, and it broke the man. And 12 months later, he was out on the streets, he was homeless. And for the last couple of weeks, he has been sleeping underneath a bridge. And then we have unbreakable. This is resilience. And this is where a person will stay in a comfort zone no matter how many events that happens in their life. But in order for them to come out of the comfort zone, sometimes it takes for that person to reach the breaking point, to shift to the left or shift to the right of this model. And the last outcome when there's an event is breakthrough. In 1975, the Vietnam War ended. It tore the country apart. The infrastructure was pretty much destroyed. My parents, they decided to leave the country illegally by sea, and they left their family and everything they've owned behind. They headed to a refugee camp in Hong Kong and stayed there for a couple of years. But the journey there was horrendous. They faced dehydration, starvation, and even eluding pirates. See, through perseverance and having blind faith that everything would work, they were finally given the green light to come to England. To my parents, this was their breakthrough, because it also gave their children an opportunity that they could only imagine. The other way that you can come out of your comfort zone is actually through self-awareness, just being consciously aware that you can move. For many years, I was a shy person, someone that sought validation from my friends and family. See, what they thought of me became my reality. In my network, there was no real spark, no real motivation. It was quite dull until I visited my neighbor in a care home and my whole perspective changed. I began questioning, is playing it safe the best way to go about it? And for 12 months, I questioned not what my friends and family needed me to be, but more on what the world needed me to be. And I also asked, how can the world benefit from me being here? And I toyed with this idea for many months until one day I walked through the park and it was snowing, and I brought my phone out and I said, I'm going to record a positive message or an inspirational message, whatever that means, right? And people would go past, and every time I did, I felt comfortable. I couldn't record myself. So I pretended I was texting my friend. 60 minutes went by. I finally created a 45-second inspirational message. I shared it across social media. I had a few likes, a few comments. I liked it because I sought validation. But what I had not anticipated were the negative comments that were coming from my close friends and family that were trickling down to me. They were saying, is Michael on drugs? He's acting differently. What's up with him these days? And I'll be honest with you, it rumbled me inside because I'm not used to it. I was always in this comfort zone. But something said to me, just keep carrying on and see what happens. And every single week, I released a 1-minute video until I was able to speak at local events and then finally speaking internationally. You see, these negative comments, these negative thoughts, the internal battle we have up here, I did not allow it to prevent me from my metamorphosis. See, the thought of touching someone's soul, the thought of unlocking someone's potential, it really just freed me from the shackles. And then it became clear that when a goal is bigger than yourself, you can really move mountains. Coming out your comfort zone reminds me of crossing the road in Vietnam. When you're one side of the road, that's your comfort zone. And where you want to go, that's the other side of the road, that's your goal. But in between, you have these motorbikes, hundreds, if not thousands, going right across. And they're not going to stop for you. And if you're waiting for that time to go across, you're going to wait a very long time. And these motorbikes, they represent your fear, your embarrassment, your self-limiting beliefs, and many more. And the way it works in Vietnam is that when you walk across, the motorbikes will go right around you. But the moment you stop, the moment you stutter, the motorbikes will crash right into you. So I'm going to show this video and show you what it looks like when you take action. And look what happens when with the motorbikes. When you're old and you have grandchildren, what stories will you tell them? Would it be about what could have been? Or would it be about the time you had courage and you took action and then you were able to live life on your terms? I want to leave you with a quote by Paulo Coelho. He said, "One day or day one, you decide." Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. What was your favorite part, the audience? For me, it was a very close tie between the crossing the road in Vietnam and the tie between our theme of last year, which was constantly metamorphosis. Next up, we have Athanasios, or Thanos for short. Athanasios is a lecturer in finance in our Essex Business School, and he teaches risk management, which ties up nicely with today, don't you think? He's going to tell us something about personal risks and what it means for our lives.
Hello to all. My name is Thanos. I don't know if you can see me, if you can hear me, but today my speech is going to be about the risk-taking, not in the way we have been discussed so many times in the lectures. I know that I may have now an open dialogue with my students, some ex-students, my colleagues. So today I'm going to discuss what is risk-taking in our lives, why risk-taking is different for the risk-taking we have been teaching in finance. So far, when teaching risk-taking, we have linked risk-taking with gambling at the casino or investing in the stock market. Risk in financial economics is volatility or uncertainty. So risk-taking means investing in volatile financial products like stocks or bonds. How about the risks we face in our lives? Is the risk-return trade-off we learn in finance valid in personal risk-taking? Is the capital asset pricing model known as CAPM valid in every human decision-making process under uncertainty? The answer, so now I'm trying to link what we have been teaching so far, what we have been taught in finance related modules with literature. So the answer has been elegantly given by Shakespeare in a theatrical play called Julius Caesar in Act 4 in Scene 3. So Brutus gives an advice to Julius Caesar. And the advice is, there is a tide in the affairs of men, which, taken on the float, leads them to fortune. Omit it, all the voyages of their lives, its balut, its sounds and miseries. On such a full sea are we now afloat, and we must take the current when it serves or lose our ventures. So, this is the direct lyrics, but see it this way. What was the advice? That there is a tide always in the affairs of men. Always you have some tides. You see the tide is coming out, and you decide. It's up to you to decide whether to go by the tide or leave it go away, and live a life of a shallow water. You can see the complete analogy of shallow waters with risk-free rate. So in a sense, the advice of Julius Caesar is risk management is in practice, is personal risk management is practice. Choose what life you want to live, a life full of adventure or a life in shallow waters, or a life obtaining always the risk-free rate. It is up to you. Right? So the lesson to be taught, we choose the life we want to follow by choosing our own personal risk-taking profile. Unfortunately, for some people, fortunately for me, the people who take little or no risk won't have a life full of adventure, will live a flat life without extreme joy and extreme pain, hence without risk. It is up to the person to decide. This is the advice of Brutus to Julius Caesar. When the tide comes, it is up to you to decide whether you live a life on the waves of the tide or live a life in shallow waters, a riskless, deterministic life. What is different in personal risk-taking? What is the main difference with financial risk-taking? This is exactly the difference. For example, when betting on a casino or in the stock market, you know the risk you face, you know the probabilities, you know the possible scenarios. Hence, you only face some calculable and ex-ante known risk. In the real life, there are risks you know. These are called, for example, known unknowns, or risks you don't know, unknown unknowns. So this is why we say always that life is unpredictable, because the moment you take a risk, you go to a different path, which you don't know if you like, which you don't know if it is preferable, you don't know whether you will like it, and then go to another path. So every time you make a risk, you go to another reality. You start knowing yourself, you start developing. When, for example, you must choose between a risky career you truly want to follow, for example, an artist, or a less risky profession with a more stable income, let's say an accountant. You never know the probabilities of success and failure in the real world decisions under uncertainty. You have to take the risk you don't know and the risk that cannot be estimated ex ante. The reasonable question arises, is there an analogous linear relationship between risk and expected return in the real world? The answer is yes, but be cautious with the word expected. Some of us may be quite lucky and get more rewards in life when compared with the risk we have taken. For example, imagine someone who wins the lottery. Some others may be extremely unlucky and, getting hit by a thunder. So again, we won't get the rewards we have risk. But the majority of us who will take, let's say on average, we will take the expected return we deserve. On average, this means the majority of us, we get what we deserve. We get the joy and utility in life, which is analogous, so linearly related to our personal risk profile, to the risk we have chosen to take in our lives. So then, is risk-taking a reasonable thing to do? Only where there is a possibility of high returns. What is the gain of risk-taking in general? Why some people take huge risks in their lives when the probability of success in their choices is only 0.0001%? What drives people to be risk takers? What is the risk to take sometimes without any meaning at all? A finance professor will tell you that there is no reason taking a risk for which the expected return is less than the risk-free rate. Why taking this risk in the first place? Why taking a risk even with negative return in your real life? The most, I would say, elegant answer to this question has been given by a Greek poet, one of my favorites, called Constantine Cavafy, which has written a poem called Satrapy, accusing himself when he refused the infinitely risky profession of poetry. At his age, poets got a very low and unstable salary to become a civil servant with a permanent and much higher salary. So The poet goes like this. What's a misfortune? Although you are made for fine and great works, the unjust fate of yours always denies you encouragement and success. That base customs block you, and pettiness and indifference, and how terrible the day you yield, the day you give up and yield, and you live on foot for Susa, and you go to the monarch Artaxerxes, who favorably placed you in his court, and offers you satrapies and the like, and you accept them with despair. These things that you do not want, your soul seeks other things, weeps for other things, the praise of the public and the sophists, the hard-won and inestimable well done, the agora, the theater, and the laurels. How can Artaxerxes give you this? Will you find this in a satrapy? And what life can you live without this? So, the lesson to be taught. What kind of life can someone live if he does not take the risks he truly wishes to take in his life, irrespectively of the material expected returns, which will come out of these seemingly unreasonably risky choices? What kind of life can someone live when he chooses conformity as opposed to choosing his desired path in life, without caring about his personal life success ratio? Who has lived a happier life? The one who was never a risk taker, so did not lose a thing, or the one who lost all his property trying to satisfy his deepest wishes and desires? To tell you a true story, the moment I believe my colleagues will know, maybe my students do not know, but as I've said, this speech is only a confession from me to my colleagues and my students. The moment I decided to leave the business industry, where I can be more highly paid, so more expected return, and return to academia, I was taking a huge risk in my life. I will never know whether I will become again a successful academic. I didn't know whether, and I still don't know whether I will be able to earn the same amount of salary I was earning in the private sector, in the industry. But why I did that? For this inestimable well done, Konstantin Kavafi says. So the moment the dean of the department asked me, why, my boy, you came to Essex now? Why you want to become an academic? Why Essex? Why now? My response was, for this inestimable well done. Inestimable because I cannot obtain this anywhere else. Inestimable because this is what my soul truly likes. Even if the expected returns, even if a finance professor will tell me that the risk you take now is worthless, you won't have higher expected return. It is we who decide the expected returns in our lives. So, the lesson to be taught is that the risk-taking life has a value of its own. Risk-taking not beneficial only when linked with high enough expected returns. Economic development, as we know it from basic macroeconomics, so our personal development comes only when people follow many different, sometimes sunny, sometimes rainy, roads, till they find what they really want. Risking is about trying to follow many different roads in life, about facing the unknown. Sometimes what we really want is not the best case scenario we assign for our lives, but the worst case scenario. Sometimes what we wish to happen, what we are mostly afraid of, is our personal heaven. Who knows? And sometimes what we're mostly afraid of can become our nightmare. So my advice to all of you, for personal risk-taking, the expected return and the risk trade-off is not the primary objective. In many occasions, it's not the objective after all. So be risk-takers if you want to live an interesting life, a life full of adventure, full of knowledge. Be risk-takers if you want to learn what you truly want for your life. Be risk-takers if you want to chase your dreams. Be risk-takers if you want not to regret for the things you have never dared to try. Be risk-takers if you want to live the life you have reason to value. Have always in your mind your target, your destination. And may the road you follow be a long one, as the same poet says, full of adventure and full of knowledge. And if the end, as still poet Ithaca says, you find your Ithaca poor, your Ithaca won't have fooled you. So I wish you then the above poem by Kavafi, and I wish you finally an interesting life journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Thanos. I think it was a really nice tie between the financial, the personal, and the poetic. What do you think, audience? We would like to hear from you in the comments. And now, to give your brains a bit of a break, we have a musical performance coming up. Lexus is currently studying law at Essex, although he is originally from Hong Kong, and he has been a street performer for 6 years now, starting when he was just 14.
Hello. Hi guys. What's up? First of all, thank you so much for having me, especially Petra and Nikki who got me here. The song I wrote is about chasing dreams and chasing dreams and reality. I wrote it when I was 15 years old, so the lyrics are kind of a bit like childish. Bear with me. I actually wrote it on this very roof. Yeah. I be like it's called White. I'll be like it. It's a quiet one. I'm sitting here, facing the skyline, dreaming what I could do. My mama told me this is Hong Kong. Dreams can be true. But if you have the struggles that I'm having now, which way should I go? I can tell. And all that you need to give is gonna drag you down, because it doesn't matter anymore. Cause everybody goes one day. It's the memory we hold. And if you look back one day, is there any dreams you hold? Everybody goes one day. It's the memory we hold. If you look back one day, is there any dreams you hold? I want to fly away with you, fly on this plane. I'll walk alone on this lonely path away. Dreams seem so far away. 'Cause everybody goes one day. Is a memory we hold. one day. Is there any dreams? Thank you very much. Yeah, cool.
Thank you, Lexus. All right, all the fans of Lexus should still stay tuned because we will have another performance by him by the end of the live stream. Our next speaker is Malik. He is a law undergraduate, youth ambassador for the Royal Society of Public Health, which is quite fitting for these times. He is also a uni football squad team member, so I really hope he has got some friends from over there here as well. Malik is interested in public speaking and debating, and today he is going to tell us more about fear.
Hello, everyone. Fear. Fear can have two meanings. Forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. Today, I'm going to be talking about the art of fear. Fact or fiction, ultimately, you decide. Now, the origin. Fear is manifested within the brain. However, it is manifested particularly in the part of the brain known as the amygdala. Every person typically has two amygdala, and this is thought to be part of the limbic system within the brain responsible for the emotions, survival instincts, and memory. But what exactly are fears? Well, fears are powerful and primitive human emotions. This alerts us to the presence of danger, and this was very critical in keeping our ancestors alive. However, fear can be further divided into two types of responses: the biochemical and the emotional response. The first, the biochemical response is universal. As fear is a natural emotion, fear provides us with a survival mechanism. When we confront a perceived threat, our body responds and reacts in specific ways, some of which include sweating, increased heart rate, high adrenaline rush. This is otherwise known as the fight or flight response, in which our body prepares itself to combat the threat in which we perceive. We can either do this or we can run away. The same thing for less intimidated fears. However, the emotional response, now this is highly personalized. Two people can experience the same event and have different levels of fear. And this is particularly because the emotional response involves the same chemicals and reactions in our brain that are responsible for emotions like happiness and excitement. This is why under certain circumstances, we can experience fear even in actions that seem like fun. For example, riding roller coasters or watching scary movies. But where exactly may fear arise? Now, fear may arise before a big event, performance, sporting events, or a speech, funnily enough. It may also arise during an examination. Fear can also arise when trying something new, whether it be a new skill, hobby, or a language. However, the last one, and this list is not exhaustive, but the last one is the fear of the unknown. And this is the fear that worries and challenges us the most, because this is a new experience. We've never been in this stage before. However, we have multiple options when we get to this point, which I will go on to explore. However, our focus on fear within this TED Talk is I've limited it to two examples. So in the academic and practical sphere of achievement, or to take risks to strive and prosper. I've got a quote here. It is impossible to live without failing at something unless you live so cautiously that you might not have lived at all, in which case you'll fail by default. Now, this is a powerful quote because the fear of failing can lead us to not realize our dreams and aspirations. We take so much caution that we limit ourselves and stay within the confines of our own fear. Without breaking the chains that oppress us, we cannot achieve our goals. We cannot achieve our ambitions and hit our targets. So, why exactly should we take risks? Well, the path to success presents many challenges, some of which can only be overcome by taking risks. Also, we can reveal a better sense of self. If we take a risk and it works out, we understand that we had what it takes, or we know the process in which we need to achieve our goals. However, if we fail, we can reflect and we can come again. We can mold a plan of action in which the next time when faced with the same event, we can achieve it. Everything is impossible until it's done. Therefore, it's important we take calculated risks to try and not limit what we can achieve. The bigger the risk, the bigger reward. The bigger rewards, those type of prizes are reserved for those who dare to dream, who dare to overcome their fears. However, so what is the relation with risk-taking and fear? Well, I introduce you and I present the law of thermodynamics, and specifically the law of conservation of energy. And this is that energy can neither be created nor destroyed, only transferred. Essentially, that's what we are trying to do. We are trying to convert the emotions of fear and push it in a direction where we can use that to really catapult ourselves towards our goals and dreams and ambitions. We can manipulate it and use the art of it to implement our success and drive. But first, we need to see what is fact and what is fiction. Now, on the left, you have danger. Danger is real. However, fear on the other hand is a product of our thoughts. We create it, and ultimately, we have the power to give it or deny it power. We can make it affect our lives, and often fear does feel like reality. However, we overcome it when we understand that we are in control. We know our weaknesses, but we also know the weaknesses in fear, and we know we can break it down and overcome that. We understand the power of our mind for the good and for the better. So how can we convert fear into success? Well, we can find at first instance. So we find exactly what it is. We identify the fear. What exactly do we fear? After this, we can evaluate. Is it fear or is it danger? When we do this, we can understand, is it a calculated risk or is it just a risk that we don't want to take? Should we pick this fight? Should we even challenge it? But also, what is on the other side of that fear? Is this something that's going to stop us from getting that promotion? Going to stop us from getting that experience, that dream job that we've always wanted? Then we analyze the nature of the fear. We analyze, what do we have? What are our skills? And how can we use those skills and pick apart the weaknesses in our fear? We use our existing knowledge, but also from previous experiences where we maybe haven't achieved our goals. We add those and we realize, if we analyze and the fear is the same as what we've experienced before, this is how we can react. Leading me to the last point, we react. However, before we would react in the natural response to fight or flight, no real plan. But now what we do is we react with a plan. The risk is calculated. This is not a guaranteed thing to succeed. However, if you win, you will be successful. But if you lose, you'll be wise. So what's next? Ultimately, you have the power. You have the power to decide what is fact or fiction and what becomes your reality. So with that, that is the art of fear. My name is Malik Mikhail Thomas. Thank you for coming to my TED.
You've asked the audience to decide whether fear is fact or fiction. So I guess the audience could let us know in the comments, what do they think? And last but not least, we have Lizzie. I can quite clearly remember that Lizzie was among the first applications, and from that point, I knew she's a perfect match. Lizzie is a coach, author, body positivity expert, and proudly bold woman focused on empowering women. Her idea is all about acts of courage. What acts of courage? Courage in identifying as beautiful.
Thank you, Petra. I was 11 years old. The first time I was definitively told I was not beautiful. I was sitting in a science lesson when the teacher walked to the front of the class and asked who wanted to feed the worms we'd been keeping and observing. My hand shot up. This was the kind of special responsibility that meant a lot to me at 11. Without pausing, he smirked at me and said, "No, Lizzie, you might scare them. We'd better have someone pretty do it. Come on, Katie, up you come." The class roared with laughter and I joined in, trying to retain some dignity. Inside, though, The humiliation was physically painful, a sharp stab of shame that I felt in the pit of my stomach as Katie sauntered to the front of the class to perform the task for which I had been deemed too unattractive. That was when I knew I had to adjust my perception of how the world viewed me. Allowing myself to simply be seen was suddenly fraught with risk. I was at risk of being judged, being ridiculed, and being found lacking. Until that day, I'd never given much thought as to whether or not I looked right. But this newfound belief that I wasn't and never could be beautiful had a huge impact on my self-worth over the years that followed. It was a belief that became so ingrained that it had become my identity. Unworthy, scared, and not quite ugly, but unbeautiful. I soon found myself on the endless journey travelled by so many women, the mission to change the way I looked. If I could look more like Katie, the girl chosen to feed the worms, then I'd be seen the way she was, valued, respected, desirable, wanted. Allowing people to see me for who I really was felt like too big a risk to take, and so my attempts to look more like the Katies became barriers to shield the true, vulnerable me from sight. I thought then that this was the best way to protect myself. I thought that hiding my unbeautifulness was the way to keep myself safe. But it turns out the real risk comes from believing you don't look good enough the way you are. A 2019 Mental Health Foundation study found that 1/3 of UK adults have felt anxious or depressed due to their body image, and I was definitely amongst that number. Frighteningly, the report also found that 1 in 8 adults have experienced suicidal thoughts as a result of poor body image. Feeling bad about the way we look is a dangerously risky business. As a confidence and body positivity coach now, I see the important connection between body confidence and confidence in all other aspects of our lives. Women who have a negative view of their appearance will often come to me lacking confidence in their work, their friendships, and their marriages. Our entire emotional state can be affected by the way we feel about how we look. For me, my poor body image meant I felt intimidated by other women, constantly comparing myself with them and finding myself lacking. I had relationships with men who treated me badly because I was grateful they'd chosen me despite my unbeautifulness. I held back from opportunities that would put me under scrutiny for fear of being ridiculed. I longed for acceptance, and so I forfeited my integrity and my authenticity in order to fit into what I thought was expected of me. That was until 2 years ago, when I turned 40, developed alopecia, and lost all my hair within 6 weeks of finding my first bald patch. It was an event that changed my life, though not, as it turned out, in the way you might imagine. When my hair fell out, I was initially distraught. It felt catastrophic. I'd spent 3 decades attempting to change my outward appearance, but now I was bald and would never look like the beautiful women I'd envied for so long. I convinced myself I needed to double down on my efforts to hide my true appearance from the world until I unexpectedly had a moment of absolute clarity that changed everything. Losing my hair meant I would never fit within the parameters of beauty that I'd spent my life longing for. And so I gave myself permission to stop trying. I suddenly saw that I was devastated about going bald because I believed it was what was expected of me. I'd been complying with the expectation that I'd be heartbroken at losing my hair without ever actually asking myself how I really felt about it. So I took a long look in the mirror, seeing myself properly for the first time. And I realized I liked it. The belief that I needed to change how I looked began melting away. I saw the simple truth that had eluded me for so long, that there is more than one way to be beautiful. In fact, there are as many ways to be beautiful as there are people in the world. And as this powerful understanding sunk in, my identity shifted. I chose to reject the story I'd believed since I was 11, that I could never look right. And that was when I made a conscious decision to begin to identify as a beautiful woman. A statement to myself and to the world that I am good enough exactly the way I am. Finally, I was ready to take the risk and allow the world to see me in my entirety. No more hiding, no more trying to look like someone I wasn't. I was ready to say, this is me and I like it. It was a powerful act of defiance to share my hairless head with the world and say, I'm beautiful. For too long, I'd fallen into the trap of believing that to feel beautiful, and by extension, to feel valued, respected, and worthy, I needed to change how I looked. But no more. We live in a world where all of us, women in particular, are bombarded daily with the message that no matter how we look, it's wrong. But given the link between poor body image and poor mental health, this message is a deeply dangerous one. And this is why identifying as beautiful is an act of courage and an act of defiance. When we make a conscious choice to reject the narrative that there's only one way to be beautiful, it's nothing short of transformative. In the beginning, it felt scary. Every single time I used the word beautiful to describe myself. When you're short, fat, and bald and say, I'm beautiful, it's a huge leap into what feels like dangerous territory, leaving yourself exposed, vulnerable to the judgments and criticisms of those who might still believe your appearance could scare the worms. But the more I did it, the less risky it felt. And so, what started as an act of defiance became an act of authenticity. Identifying as beautiful began to feel less like a risk and more like an awakening. It felt like I was seeing who I'd always been. And armed with my newly claimed identity, I began showing up in all aspects of my life with energy, purpose, and confidence. I finally understood that I am good enough, that I'm valued, that I'm worthy of feeding the worms. I want you to know that you can also make the courageous choice to identify as beautiful. And it starts by simply giving yourself permission, just like I did 2 years ago. You don't have to justify your identity as beautiful. You just have to say it. I'm beautiful. With no caveat to excuse your brave and defiant statement. You almost certainly don't fit perfectly within the narrow parameters that society says equal beauty. And yet, you are beautiful. Identifying as beautiful means so much more than being happy with your proportions and features. It's not a superficial admiration of the individual parts that make up your being. It means accepting that feeling beautiful doesn't come from how you look, but from how you look at yourself. It means stopping your endless work to perfect your appearance. It means taking the risk and allowing the world to see you exactly as you are. Identifying as beautiful in a world that tells you you're not is a powerful act of courage and defiance. I am beautiful, and you are too. Thank you.
Thank you, Lizzie. It's not only a powerful egg, but it's definitely a powerful message. Now, this was our last speech of the day, but it's definitely not the end of today's event. Next up, we have Lexus again, who is going to perform a song called Wayfaring Stranger. Difficult word for me to pronounce. I hope he sings better than I speak.
Hiya, I'm back. What up? Thank you for having me again. So this next song, okay, I'm gonna tell something about myself. Since I was 14, I hate the normal society, like what society expects us to do, like go to work, go back to work, get a job, you know, get married, you know, all the stuff like that. I really don't feel like I should be doing that. I'm not saying it's bad, because like it depends on how people, you know, go like one, you know. So yeah, this next song, I want to dedicate this song to all those people who chase their dreams. Like there's times that you must feel, you know, sad and lost and lonely while you do, you know, you take your risks, you know, get out of your comfort zone. And I want to dedicate this song to everyone that feel the way or have felt or is feeling this way. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I hope you like it. It's a folk song. I just did something with it. It's everything's live. I'm just using this thing called the loop station. So you just record everything and plays it back with the loop. You'll see. I will demonstrate. But I haven't played this for so long. So if I mess it up, bear with me. Cool.
Cause I'm a poor wayfaring stranger, traveling through this world alone. There's no sickness, but all danger, and bright light shall go now. And I'm going there to see my mother. I'm going there on her own. I'm only going over Jordan. I'm only going, I'll go now. And I know dark cloud will gather me and all the beautiful Robin Steve and all the beautiful feelings. Rising on me and all the beautiful feelings. Robin Steve, that I'm going there to see my mother. I'm going there. I'm only going over Jordan. I'm only going. I will go now. 'Cause I'm a poor, wayfaring stranger, traveling through this world alone. All the sickness to the whole danger and bright lights. I will go now, and I'm going there to see my mother. I'm going there on the road. I'm only going over Jordan. I'm only going. I will go now. Thank you. Live your life, man. If you're not taking risks, what's the point? Yo, I'm just kidding. Yeah, thank you.
Well, I've been reading a couple of comments and it's all great. I know you have been worried about messing this up, but this has been amazing.
Thank
And
you.
now I think I'm not sure if you have ended on the high note, but we still have George coming up. I believe he has had enough time to come up with the poem for today. So George, if you are ready, the stage is yours.
All right, I'm ready. So the words that were given were courage, butterfly, help, laundry, danger, and period with a T. So hope you guys like this. I also tied in a question that Dizzy asked in the comments earlier. So hope you guys like this. And here we go. I know Yoda says there's no try, but between all of us, I'm probably the only Jedi here. So I'm going to say attempt. Queen Dizzy asked, if you believe how we look on the outside reflects what's happening internally. Well, for me, expressing emotions and experiences through words, usually on the stage in front of my friends and strangers, results in me being so nervous I can hear the hair on the back of my neck grow as my heart beats on my chest, the same way a landlord drops a drum solo on the door of a broke tenant. A drop, a perspiration moonwalks from my forehead to converse with my beard, becoming the ignition to my adrenaline. See, this results in my heart pulling the muscles of the corner of my mouth always away like siblings arguing over their toys, my teeth. You see, I smile because every time my tongue pulls words out the air like Bluetooth, I realize I should have been fresh linen, 100 rejections, and so many what ifs ago, period. I've let fear piggyback on my confidence during my journey for too long. So the answer is yes, Dizzy, for me anyway. I've let the lust for external affirmation stain my laundry like a scarlet letter. So my message to everyone is opportunity is the motivational general that inspires your knees, courage to pull your hamstrings and calves closer to each other like a family reunion to welcome defeat so you move forward. This feeling is equal to how equality triggers the metamorphosis of a caterpillar in the belly of a lifelong activist, more butterflies than food fights at a toast in Southern Fried Food Convention. Are you really living or just existing? Your reflection dies for this answer every morning as you use the same toothpaste that you've been using for years. Have you even noticed that there's still a cavity in your soul? Have you noticed that we spend so much time of our lives inviting I should have and what if and fear over for dinner just to watch life? And why aren't you trying to become a better version of yourself? Don't you see the danger in letting fear and anxiety milli rock your confidence from wall to wall in your skull? See, performing spoken word for me is like poetry that becomes the most vulnerable fun that you can't wait to have again. And it's over before you know it. So it's kind of like the perfect first date. What I mean is, if it's your calling, you can't help but to hurdle those mental roadblocks regardless if you know what's on the other side. And I'll end with this. In the last few years of your life, if someone decided to write a book or make a movie about you with the intentions to show your family generations down the line, would those lines have roller coasters of emotion through adventures of excess, success, and failure? Or would the music in those movies resemble the joy and fear from you breaking the status quo? Would those lines vividly describe how you let mandatory monotony settle in without a rent payment? Or would your scenes paint dull pictures of you becoming an existing spirit bounded by a list of fear and questions? I hope you realize with every word that you've heard all these speakers say, that we're not asking you to risk it all, but what decisions could you make today that creates a legacy and gets people to open up your book and turn the page? Thank you.
Thank you. It really nicely tied with the speakers. I loved it. So what you have just seen was the last performance by our artist called Fresh Linen. And before we proceed with the Q&A that we have promised, we have to fulfill our official requirements. And we have to show you a TED Talk. The TED Talk that we have chosen is a very special one. Again, it ties with risk-taking. And I really wanted to include something about environment because it's really close to my heart. But unfortunately, we never received an application for a speaker to speak about this topic. So here is instead an official TED Talk.
Grasshoppers, termites, and dragonflies. The practice to settle in the present. Cambodia, Southeast Asia. insects can also be turned into more sustainable food from livestock and can be reared on organic waste, like vegetable peelings, that might otherwise just end up rotting in landfills. Feeling hungry yet? Faced with a plate of fried crickets, most people today would still recoil, imagining all those legs and feelers getting stuck between their teeth. But think of a lobster. It's pretty much just a giant insect with legs and feelers galore that was once regarded as an inferior, repulsive food. Now, lobster is a delicacy. Can the same paradigm shift happen for bugs? So give it a try. Pop that insect into your mouth and savor the crunch.
All right, I have been given a feedback that probably you haven't heard a word of this. Well, we will leave a link for the TED Talk in the description and probably also share it on Instagram so that you can enjoy it again if you want to. And now I hope all of our speakers can turn on their video and microphones. Yep, we've got Lizzie, Serena. All right. So before we begin with the questions from the audience, here is one of mine. What were your immediate feelings after you finished talking, and how are you feeling now? And let's go by the order that we have spoken today. So Serena.
I personally was extremely happy, like almost like a child that goes to the park, basically. And so excited. It was like so much adrenaline. And I immediately look for the feedback of my friends and the people that follow me. And all the support just put so much happiness like in me. So yeah, excitement, happiness, always.
Agnieszka.
Well, it was great. I mean, probably about the same as Serena. So basically the first thing I felt was such a relief from all this stress that was kind of building up inside me for the past few days when I was preparing for this. But once this was done, I was so happy, and the same, I checked all the messages my friends sent me, and it was just great.
I think who was next? George, you were actually next as our performer. So what were your feelings?
So for me, definitely never done anything like this specifically with TEDx. So a moment I've been building up for a long time. And like everyone said, to do your performance and then go to the comments to see the feedback from everybody when we're all used to getting that immediate feedback, like claps or snaps in my case. It felt really good to go back there and see the support from you all and then see the support from my friends and family.
Michael?
On myself, it was probably relieved. There's a lot of stress building towards it. We've done a lot of practice runs together as well. And although our talk is maybe 8 to 10 minutes, of course, there's a lot of work behind it to get it where we are. And all we want to do is deliver a message to everyone. So we hope we've done that.
Right. Oh. What were your feelings when you finished your talk?
What can I say? It's good to have the opportunity to have confessions with and make a different way of making of expressing your views. You see, so to exchange ideas with you, all of you, to the people who hear me, to probably my students, my colleagues, and then we have a lot of time in another meeting of ours to discuss again. So it is a time now, you see, coronavirus period, to discuss now about personal risks. Now financial risk has gone away. And so it's a nice opportunity to discuss again. It was a nice confession. It was my first confession to my students. Now that exams are on the way, now I was the one who have to give a confession to my students about what I feel about a risk for my life. Thank you all again for hosting me.
Alexis, do you want to share as well?
Hi. See, I always think taking. It's how I actually live my life. How I actually been trying to live my life. The fact that I'm studying in university was such a big struggle for me when I was choosing my path, because I wanted to actually do music. I want to I really want to explore. I really want to go out there. Try to do stuff and be live the uncertainty. So I've always tried to do that. So yeah, I can relate so much with this talk, and you guys has been a really great inspiration for me. So thank you so much for that. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Malik, what were your immediate feelings after you finished?
I'd say there were a plethora of emotions for me, but one of the main ones was one of relief. As I foresaid, in a time of great uncertainty, just to see how everyone that was involved put together, even the people that aren't on the screen, everyone worked hard and got the event to where it was, and it went smoothly well. But yeah, so obviously the support as well was a big relief to see everyone liked it, everyone liked the talk. And yeah, and everyone was learning, and I think that's the most important thing. So yeah, that's it for me.
And Lizzie, what about your feelings and emotions? Oh, have we lost Lizzie? All right. Well, can anyone else see her? Nope. Okay. So, oh, she's back. All right, Lizzie, it was actually your turn to tell us about your feelings and emotions.
Okay, can you hear me okay now? My wife is just
all good.
Luckily, it held up through my talk, right? So being part of a TEDx event has been at the top of my wish list for a really, really long time. So this is just properly dream come true moment for me. Obviously, it's not quite how I'd always imagined it. I thought I'd have this audience in front of me and I'd be standing on the red dot and have the TEDx branding behind me. But actually having, come straight from my talk into the Facebook chat and had a look at all the such lovely, lovely comments that have been left there. It's just like getting that feedback from the audience, and I'm just really proud to have been part of this.
All right, Agnieszka, you got a very specific question asking whether you had some public speaking training before this, or whether this was your first time doing a public speaking thing.
Right. So when I was at university, I attended the Public Speaking Society meetings for a while. It was a great experience. We were learning how to perform on the stage, how to use your body language, just anything that comes with public speaking. So yes, I had some training, but I feel like no matter how much you try, it's never enough. And there's always something else to learn, and always something else to keep behind your, keep on your mind, just to remember, and there's always something new to learn about public speaking.
All right. Michael, you've got a very interesting question there. How do we speak with communities who disagree with us?
Sorry, what was the question?
How do we speak with communities who disagree with us? It's a really difficult question, but someone really wanted you to answer this.
How do we communicate with communities that disagree with us?
Yeah.
Okay. There's always going to be, whatever idea we have, it's always going to be people that disagree with us, and it's going to be people that agree with us. It's pretty much getting your comfort zone. Once you move away from that community, or that your friends or family, and you move on and you move ahead with your idea, you will probably find a new set of group that would support your idea as well. So don't feel like you are tied to one set of community, because when you move across, there'll be another community that will support your idea as well. So it's all about taking that first action and making that move and saying, this is what I feel, this is my idea. And you probably see that there's people that's on your network, on Facebook, Instagram, that will support you on that idea as well. So you can't please everyone. If you try to please everyone, you please nobody.
Yeah, really good point. I don't know how I would answer that, which is why you are all the experts. So we also got another question that we are not quite sure who it was for, but I'm guessing Serena, because to me it sounds very psychological. And it is, do you believe how we look on the outside reflects what's happening on the inside?
So if it's, sorry, can you repeat?
Yeah, whether you believe that how we look on the outside reflects what's happening inside. So
okay. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, definitely, I think so. And I can tell that because I know so many people, and me in the first place, that start to look beautiful or more beautiful than before, just once that they accept themselves, or just once that they found out all the hidden spots that they had on their personality and on their soul. Once you are able to put on the spot all your beautiful like spots and everything, then like I ensure 100% that all the people that have done that, and I can ensure also me in the first place, look more beautiful. So yeah, 100%, you can actually see already from the eyes, I think, of a person. When a person has something deep in their soul, you can see it already. Not, they don't even need to say a word. You can immediately spot it. So yeah, definitely, I think so.
Now I can sort of imagine Lizzie also answering this question if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I would add to that is, first of all, the short answer is yes. I absolutely believe that, I wrote the question down, how we look on the outside reflects what's happening on the inside. Kind of the next part of my story that I started telling you is that it was only after I started to describe myself as beautiful and believe that I was beautiful that actually other people started describing me as beautiful. Now, there is nothing inherently more beautiful about a woman going bald. You know, losing my hair did tick a box to make me more beautiful. Yet after I lost my hair, that was when I started to be described as beautiful by lots of other people. So that can only possibly be a reflection of the way I was feeling on the inside and that they were seeing. And they can't have possibly said, oh, look, she's lost all her hair. Look how beautiful she is. I'm the same as I was, just without the hair. So I think that that's, for me, that's absolute proof that because on the inside I'm starting to feel more beautiful, that's obviously reflecting, something is showing, and other people are seeing that in me as well.
Alexis, we got a very interesting question when we put your photo up, and it was, how are you?
Me?
Yeah.
How am I? Oh,
yeah, that was the question, yeah.
I don't know, man. Honestly, I don't know. I'm joking. I'm all right, thank you. I mean, despite all everything's going on, like, you know, the quarantine and everything, we're all, you know, trying to hold on, you know, I think. So, yeah, I'm all right.
Whoever was interested, now you have the answer. Malik, a question for you was, in an academic setting, what would your recommendation to students who are fearful of failing their exams? What would be, so when someone is failing their exams and they're fearing that, what would be your recommendation?
First of all, thank you for the question. But I'd say, first of all, at first instance, to understand that fear of failing, essentially, and that's a natural thing. And actually, that's a good thing, because what that means is that you're doing something which you're exerting yourself, you're stepping outside of your comfort zone, as Michael said. But in terms of fear of failing examinations, I know right now for students, that's a very trending topic. But with that is to take that a lot of students are in the same position. In fact, I'd say every student's in the same position to an extent. But the overarching thing is control. What do you have control over? Nobody has controls over the present time in terms of what will happen in terms of lockdown measurements, flights, accommodation, etc. But what we do have control over is what we can do in the meantime. And so in the meantime, I'd say personal advice is to make sure you really use this time to try and be as productive as possible with your studies. If that's a subject or a topic that you didn't really understand from before, now's no better time like now to really, sit down and try and plan out exactly how you're going to do it. So I'd say literally just try and control what you can control. And if you do that and it doesn't work, it's down to something else. But if you do that and, once you've done that, everything else you let the universe deal with that.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. And since you are a lecturer, do you want to say anything about this as well?
About the probability of failure?
about
You know,
what you
to be afraid, as I said, to be afraid is natural. To, you know, to sometimes fear, or sometimes, you know, making a mistake. You see, to go back, what is development? Development is making mistakes. So the people who are afraid of making a mistake and take a lower grade, they will learn more by the mistakes. What we have learned so far is learning by doing or learning by mistaking. Every time you do a mistake, you learn what you don't want, or you learn what is another avenue to go. So mistakes are the one who make you better student, make you better in your job. So mistake is something that I don't know if you can, as I said, I don't know if it's something that you have to wish for, or it's something that you must always avoid. If you always avoid mistaking, it's like avoiding risk. So the more you go on and take risks, the mistake is a natural outcome. So for the students, I would say to them, learn by your mistakes. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, but only new mistakes, not the old ones, new mistakes. I'm always in favor of seeing students doing new mistakes, because this means that they keep on developing. The old mistake is stupidity. The new mistake is wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, to me, mistakes sound really, really scary. And well, for our artist, Fresh Linen, we received a lot of questions. Mainly, they wanted to know about your creative process. I think you may have some competition and they are trying to steal your ideas.
So they want to know my creative process.
The hardest part and how to get past it.
I'll be honest, I'll let you know my secret. A lot of my ideas come from just being in the shower a little too long, just standing there, and then boom, thoughts come to me, or long drives. But usually, instead of just describing, like I did in the other poem, instead of just describing, I pick up my right foot to move forward. I said, my hamstrings and my calves came together like a family reunion. So trying to take something simple, but then dive in a little bit deeper to show your audience how connected to what you're saying you really are. Paint that picture with your words. And not to be too cliche with the theme, but you definitely have to just try different things. You have to risk possibly sounding corny, like you're throwing in a bunch of dad jokes maybe into your poem, or just whatever you want to express. But I would say with my journey to get here, I definitely just had to keep taking opportunities. Very, very rarely I've said no to an opportunity to hop on some type of platform to express myself and show who I am as George Lennon and Fresh Lennon, and what that really means to have that duality with your stage name or pen name versus who you are walking around every day, if those are two different people, or if that's just the way you want to express yourself. I just encourage everybody just to try it. Any type of form to express yourself, whether it just be painting or writing or going on a TEDx to spread your idea.
All right. Now, a lot of the other questions centered around inspiration. So let's go by the order that I see on the screen, which can be quite random for other people. But Serena, what inspired you to do this?
So honestly, I think that what really blew my mind into the overall concept of risk-taking was the first time that I took a really big risk in my life. And it was when I moved to Finland when I was 17. I was an exchange student, and for 10 months, I haven't seen my family at all. I was hosted by another family, and actually halfway there, so in the first month, I actually changed family. And I think that from that, I understand so many things. From just that point of stepping out of my comfort zone, as Michael said, that just made me realize so many things about life, about myself, and I really got to know the world. As well, I met so many people from different parts of the world, and I understood that there's not one single point of view, but there are so many. And that there's no objectivity in the world, but there's just subjectivity, as many people as are in the world. And so probably all these things that I understood, I wouldn't ever get anything of life if I didn't take that step out. So what really inspired me for doing this was delivering this message to as many people as I could. So reach out as many people. And so when I saw that the topic of this year for the TEDx was risk-taking, I said, wow, that's actually what really is in my heart every single time. Every time that I have the chance to get in the topic with my friends as well, I always push them to do something that it's hard, something that they probably wouldn't like to do. And I do that because as a friend, I feel that that's my job. But as well, I think that in the world, actually, we're all connected, no matter how far we are or how close we are. And we all influence each other always and constantly and in various ways as well. So the message that I really wanted to deliver and what really inspired me was just, if you take this risk, you will slowly get to know yourself, get to know the world. You will find out the beauty outside. And so instead, if you stay on the sofa, on your comfort zone, you will just stay there and be stuck and probably hate everything that surrounds you.
Right. Athanasios, do you want to tell us about your inspiration behind your talk? Thanos. Do you want to tell us about your inspiration?
About strengths, sorry.
The inspiration behind your
The inspiration behind my talk. The inspiration behind my talk is always real life circumstances and experiences. So what I wanted to discuss is that sometimes what we teach is not what we believe in terms of our real life. So I wanted to make, let's say, to give my way of thinking about the way I have acted in my life, just for the students to have and my colleagues to have my impressions about how we have to face our own personal risk and be risk takers, be risk. So Santa says, be good for goodness sake. I would say be risky for riskiness sake. Right. So this is what inspired me. The thing that I was still acting as a child, even when lecturing or when exchanging ideas with students. So this is what inspires me, keeps on inspires me. We must not leave what we believed when we're children. So yeah, my childhood, I would say, if we go back, yeah, my childhood.
George, we have talked about your creativity, but what inspired you to join TEDx?
Joining TEDx, when I see these posters, when I saw these posters at EBS, the first thing I thought is a good opportunity for me to discuss with students things that we cannot discuss in class. You see, in class there are rules. We have to make given material about risk management, about what are the principles of risk management, which sometimes I don't believe, right? So I'm not saying I don't believe in financial risk management, but in personal life, financial risk management is not applicable. So I say, what a nice opportunity to discuss with my community, with you all, with my colleagues, about what we believe about the personal risk we face. So it was a nice opportunity for us to discuss again and reinvent personal risk taking, which is something that bothers me a lot. Yeah, and I keep on bothering by exchanging ideas now with you and the people who commenting on my ideas.
Yeah. George, one question for you. What inspired you to join TEDx?
So a few years ago, I seen my first TEDx video. I think it was, or excuse me, it wasn't TEDx, it was a TED Talk. It was Simon Sinek. And once I found out about TEDx that, other people can do this, I figured why not? This is the best opportunity to use art and spread those ideas to other people, and using art to disconnect with other people, because there might be somebody in the audience, whether we're being virtually or physically there, that's like, wow, like I didn't understand a lot of these fancy college words that this one person said, but this dude just wrote a poem and did it, or he painted a picture, or whatever the case is. So I just wanted to be a good representation for art and bring that to the tech community.
Well, I can say that you did bring into the community. Agnieszka, where did you find inspiration for your TEDx talk?
So TEDx talk was like a dream of mine for a very, very long time. And I feel like I've always enjoyed watching TED Talks, especially since I learned English. And like any problem you have, you can find a solution in a TED Talk. You just have to type it online, and there is always someone talking about the thing that interests you. And I found most of those speeches so interesting and so inspirational that I felt that at some point in my life, I wanted to be a part of it. So when I found out about this opportunity that TEDx Society organized at Essex University, I thought that was my chance. It's now or never. And then the risk-taking theme was so broad. So there were so many different ways to approach this. It was like a big risk for me to take, and I couldn't refuse this. And you know, they always say like do the things that scare you most, because that's the only way you grow and learn. And I was really terrified to take part in this, but in the end, it turns out it wasn't really that scary. So yeah, just my general interest that pushed me to do this.
Okay. Malik, what was your inspiration behind what you have said today?
Okay, so my inspiration, I think it stems from a lot of different things. As my colleague said as well, I've been watching, TEDx and TED Talks on YouTube. I really enjoy them. Even some things I didn't really think I needed to know until I see them, and then I watch them and I say that to someone else. But I'd say the main thing is my role models. So my role models, whether that be in an academic sense or in a sporting sense or musical sense, but I always realize the common denominator is risk and risk taking. And so I try to implement that into my life. However, I'm also a big believer of each one teach one. So as I get knowledge, I try to impart that, whether that be to my friends, my siblings, even my parents sometimes. And I thought there was no better platform than to do this on this TEDx. So yeah, taking into, and it just so happened that the theme that we were doing coincided with the theme that I already was thinking about, and yeah, it just came together perfectly. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Michael, where did you draw inspiration?
My inspiration came from my personal experience, just playing it safe, being an autopilot for so long, and then looking back and saying, how much have I grown so far? And it's not that much. And that's, of course, it's just playing a comfort zone. And then it's more about coming out of it. It can be shaky at times, and then being okay with that. And the way I look at the fears, the risk as well, is if we flip it on its head and then look at the opportunities instead, then we're going to have a different outlook on that. And that certainly helps a lot as well. For me, the main message today to the university was more on once you graduate and you have a job and your life sometimes can go on autopilot for being a job for the next 40 years, you have a family as well. And what I don't want is, you be in a care home or telling your grandchildren the same story. Like, I didn't live a fulfilled life as well because you played too safe. And if I can share this message today, then it sort of plays that back in the mind and says, oh, actually, maybe I've been playing too safe. Maybe I need to do something else. Maybe I need to push myself. And sometimes we use the word risk taking and it sounds like a huge step. But sometimes risk taking could just mean, or stepping out of comfort zone could mean just a small, tiny step just to test the water as well and build that confidence up. Sometimes we take a huge step out and it gets really scary when we jump back in. And that's drawn by the past experience. So take your time and just grow on a daily basis, if not weekly basis. And you see that when you look back in last week or last month or last year and say that I've grown as a person, then that would be an amazing year for you as growing as having a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset. So that's my inspiration. I want to share it with the world, especially with the university today, and hopefully people will take action, regardless if it's small or big.
Mm-hmm. Alexis, do you want to tell us why you decided to actually be part of the TEDx event and where you get inspiration for your songs?
See, firstly for TED, of course, like I've been seeing TED since I was small, like everybody has. School, they show talks and it's always been really inspirational. I remember I've seen some talks about similar stuff, like talking about like similar topic, as in like talking about how we should, live our life like fully, things like that. And I've been inspired ever since. My songs, because I'm always sad, not gonna lie. I write songs whenever I feel overwhelmed with feelings. I guess it's like people do that, you know, like it's kind of expression in a way, and it's kind of, it feels better, you know. So my songs are like mostly from my, especially from a young, like from my earlier songs, I write them. It's all about, you know, choosing between realities and, you know, chasing dreams, struggling, stuff like that. And yeah, I guess this is, you know, this is how like all artists do work, create works, I think, as well, like because of their emotions and the mental journey, you know. So yeah.
Okay, and Lizzie, I suppose your inspiration for this talk came mainly from your life, but do you have any external sources or inspiration?
I think for me, the beginning point of the inspiration for this came from the work I do with my clients, who women who I support with confidence, because for them it always ends up coming back to their willingness to take a risk, because confidence is all about how the worries we have around the way people will perceive us and judge us, and you have to be ready to take a risk and let people kind of make that judgment of you. So that's a lot of the work I do, and I guess it's the beginning point for my inspiration. But I've also, over the last couple of years, done a lot of speaking around my story, around learning to feel beautiful, around what it means to have lost my hair. And when I saw your call for speakers, I really loved the opportunity to tell my story in a new way, to tell it through that risk-taking lens, because I'd never before really thought about the risks that I've taken in allowing myself to be vulnerable and to be seen the way that I do. So for me, the inspiration came really from the theme that you set for the event, and the way that I could then apply that and use it as a lens to tell my story in a whole different way.
Oh, wow. Wow, in that case, we have to thank Nikki again for introducing this topic, and then for the general university public for actually voting for this one. Now, there is one question that I have to read to you because I think it's really difficult, and I want you to, I don't know, raise your hand if you feel like answering this one. So how do you prevent a previous undesired outcome of risk-taking to make you reluctant in taking future risks? Okay. How do you prevent a previous undesired outcome of risk-taking to make you reluctant in taking future risks? So who feels like answering this one? All right, Lizzie. And then Michael. Not Michael, Malik.
One of the techniques I use a lot with, really what we're talking about here is kind of what if thinking. You know, I tried this thing once, it didn't go very well. What if it doesn't go very well again? And a really simple technique I use a lot in my coaching is to really ask yourself that question, well, what if? So to answer it, what might go wrong? But then say to yourself, and then what? And really think of, you know, what would happen if that thing went wrong? So if the risk is, I'm going to speak in front of an audience, but last time I spoke in front of an audience, I forgot my lines. So what if it happens again? So you say, okay, so what if it happens again? Well, then I feel embarrassed. You say, okay, and then what? Well, and then I'll take a breath and start again. And then what? Well, then I'll probably get through to the end of my talk. And then what? And then people will see that I'm good at speaking and that I've made my point and I'll have affected people the way I want to. So taking your fear and asking yourself, and then what, and then what, and then what, will show you that it won't necessarily end with the same outcome as it did before. And that's a technique that can really help.
Okay, Malik, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, I'd say in terms of, so to answering that question, one thing that I've found that's worked quite well in my life so far is the use of reflective cycles. Now, with reflective cycles, you can use, there are many out there, but they all have similar foundations, and those are the different stages. So for example, if it was an experience you had before, first of all, that would be your concrete experience in the words of Cope. But from there, what I'd recommend, and what the reflective cycles do recommend, is that you reflectively observe. So you find out what happened, what were the thoughts and feelings, you really find the makeup of what actually happened during that time. Once you've done that, you can then go into your abstract conceptualization, which is when you find out what can be your plan of action taken on what you've learned or not learned, or what you failed at. You can find out what is it that you want to implement for the next time that happens. So if it's a fear of, as Lizzie was talking about, performing or speaking, you find out what your thoughts and feelings were and why that was. Or you find out, maybe was it because you weren't prepared? Are you going to prepare better next time? Are you going to do some more practice before you get to this new event? Now, after that, and after you've got this experience, because that's what life is. Life is literally, it's not the end, it's not the start or the beginning, it's the middle, it's what you do within life. So once you've done that, then you get to your active experimentation. And so you put all of that together, what you've done and what you've learned. And then if you go to speak, again, you have all of this knowledge before, you have all of these lessons, and then you mitigate, or you try and minimize the chance that you'll fail at that particular thing.
All right. I also think Thanos had something to add.
Yeah, I want to be, complementary to what Lizzie and Malik said. So in that question, so going back to the basic principles and not link it with financial risk taking, but with personal, there was an old, still I will reply with poetry. There was an old poem by a novelist called Seferis, Greek again poet, who says that with, every time we make our plans, we have desires, we have wishful thoughts, and said with what heart, with what plans we made our life, and then things go all wrong. But in that time, we have to put, a full stop and say we did wrong and admit our mistakes and go further than do new mistakes. Again with openness. So my advice would be, do new mistakes, be always, open to do mistakes, and be always open to learn by your mistakes. And later on, when you see the danger, recall your memory and say, I may have lived that in the past, so not do again the same, do new ones. So not afraid of the loss to do another loss. The life is full of losses and full of gains. This is risk, loss and gain, right? So do new mistakes and don't be afraid and admit your mistake, because loss aversion is different than risk aversion. Loss aversion is afraid of your losses in your personal life. So that moment you are loss averse is different than risk averse. If you are afraid of losses in your life, then you keep on making mistakes the same. You keep on risking without any wisdom at all. So don't be loss averse, be risk averse.
Okay.
Actually, can I add something?
Yeah.
Thank you. So actually, I will answer to this question with another question. Like, why should you? Like, why should you try to calculate all the risks? Because from what I've learned so far from my short but intense life is that the best things always come from what we didn't calculate or from we didn't consider at all. Because I think that above all in this area, in this era, we always try to do this almost schemas or mind maps where we try to calculate everything and we try to put everything in their place and just try to make everything neat and tidy. But what I've noticed and what I've learned so far is that nothing is tidy, nothing is neat any single time, because just life is a mess. Whatever it is, it's a chaos. Of course, it's good to be organized. Don't question this, because then most of the moms that maybe are listening to this would crush me. But like, life is chaos, so calculate everything is, I think, a bit useless. You can of course do it, but trust me, most of the most beautiful things in the world, or like from the experiences that you do in your life, the best part comes from what you didn't expect. So don't calculate anything.
Well, I don't like that advice. I'm a very calculative person. Anyway, before I start saying all the final thank yous, I would like to ask our speakers if they have any last bits of wisdom that they would like to share with us. So let's go by the same order again. So whoever went first for the event goes now. So Serena.
Okay. Well, I think I have one suggestion for everybody, which is to never underestimate yourself, because that's the starting point of going nowhere. Because the secret is that you need to believe in yourself. I mean, we are surrounded with people that support us, but we start realizing that only once that we believe in ourselves. When you don't believe in yourself, you think that nobody does, and that everybody hates you, and nobody likes you, or nobody believes in what you do. But once you do the job for yourself, also other people, you will notice all the other people that are in the backstage shouting for you. So first, taking risks, the first step is believing in yourself, or at least believing in the unknown, in the uncertainty, because there somewhere there's a project for us, or I think we're just meant to create love around us. So don't underestimate yourself.
Okay, that's a really nice message. Agnieszka, your piece of wisdom.
I think it's kind of like one of my favorite sentences that says, "It's never as scary as it looks." So if something really scares you, it's because it's unknown, and it's because you have never experienced it before. But once you do it, you realize it's really not as scary as it looks. So take those risks, talk to that girl you want, invite someone on a date, just do whatever you feel, and honestly, just keep in mind that it's never as scary as it looks. It will all work out eventually. Whatever your plan is and whatever you feel like, it's going to work out.
Okay, now we would like to ask Fresh Linen for a piece of advice, a wisdom.
I guess I'll just keep it short. Just try. That's the biggest thing you can do. A lot of people live their life saying, what if I ever did this, or I should have done this, I should have done that. But if you tried, at least you can sit back and say, hey, I gave it my all at this one opportunity. Maybe it's just not meant to be, or I tried and I tried again and I finally got it. Try.
Yeah, that seems to be the wisdom from a couple of talks today. Okay, next was Michael. Michael, what is your wisdom for today?
My wisdom for today would be just be comfortable in your own skin. And that means sometimes you could be in a position where you outgrow your friends. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be on their level in terms of wavelength as well. Be okay with moving on to different sets of people. I think that's the big thing. And don't seek validation. That will only hold you back. The big thing, of course, for me is that by living on your terms, that when you grow old, there's something about that for me, that when you grow old, that you have no regrets on the decisions that you have made, because we can't turn back the hands of time. So play life on your terms and keep growing.
Okay, I feel like you keep stealing each other's message based on your TEDx talks. Thanos, what is your message for today?
My message for today, let's say wisdom. Okay, wisdom. Might be, you see, again, see, sometimes another song which I like say that the ocean is deep, I'm afraid. So what can I do in the ocean? The ocean has pain, but you know, the final outcome after many lyrics in the song comes that the ocean is sweet. Sweet means together tears and pain. So the adding up tears, pain, and joy and happiness that the ocean gives you, it's sweet. So in terms, the risking is sweet. The final taste, the expected outcome is always sweet, right? So whether it is tear, whether it is happiness, the outcome is sweet.
Okay, Lexus, do you have any piece of wisdom for us today?
I guess I'll go with, remember, like, try to find something that makes you feel alive. Like, there are a lot of things, and in general, that makes your heart, beats, and the feeling of that is just, I think we all should find that thing that makes you feel alive, and try to do that. Just as simple as that.
Okay, simple but very nice. Okay, Malik, what is your piece of wisdom?
Okay, I'd say taking one piece of wisdom, it's that everything is impossible until it's done or until it's achieved. So with that, I think you need to understand more than likely in every situation, there's been someone who's walked that journey. There's been someone who's taken that risk, and it's either worked out or not worked out. And if nobody's taken that risk, well, that means you have a chance to make history. So you need to weigh up the pros and cons, weigh up what you can achieve from it, what against what you possibly couldn't. I know everyone always says, you know, you only regret the chances you didn't take. So for that, that's what I'd say my advice would be.
All right, thank you. And Lizzie, what is your wisdom for today?
I often say that feeling confident in your own skin has got nothing to do with how you look and everything to do with how you look at yourself. For me, it took many years and quite a dramatic thing to happen for me to learn that I was never going to find that inner happiness and confidence in trying to change my appearance. So that's really my words of wisdom, is that you can go on diets and do your makeup and change your hair and do all the things that society tells us we're supposed to be doing, but actually it's not going to make a difference to how you see yourself. The way to feel positive and confident is actually in taking that risk of saying, I'm not going to do any of that stuff. I'm going to look at who I really am as a person, and I'm going to learn to love who that person is exactly the way he or she already is. So that's my wisdom for you.
Very nice, thank you. And now it is the time for my last thank yous, but I hope you stay by the screen. So thank you for everyone who helped us organize this today, whether you helped when we were organizing the face-to-face event or the online events. A special thank you for a couple of society members and society friends who helped us with today's live stream. Some of them helped over on Facebook, some of them helped over on Instagram, some of them took screenshots, so they were actually today's photographers. I hope you enjoyed today's event. If you want to help us create a better one next year, hopefully face-to-face event next year, please do donate on the Just Giving page. And my piece of wisdom for today is to stay safe, wash your hands, and have an amazing rest of the weekend. Goodbye.
Bye, thank you.
Goodbye.